So just to give you guys a little bit of context about iTrizo, who we are, what we do. So iTrizo, we've developed here in Australia. We're very proud of that. We're a female, it's a female-founded company, so I founded the company. My background is in technology. I've lived and breathed technology since my late teens, and that's a very, very long time ago now. I've been involved in the corporate world, doing a lot of mergers and acquisitions, technology integrations, building platforms, something like MyKey, NavTrade, so been involved in the fintech in the past, and also in supply chain, so the likes of Toll Group, Australia Post, Australia Express, where I've worked as consultant in my past life. And then as technology evolved, my last business, we were purely an IBM blue shop. So we were selling IBM products. I thought, well, this is, and as IBM's reputation tanked, so did our business. So we thought, well, where is technology headed? What can I bring to the table? And what is it that people are seeking from technology now? So back in 2015, when big data, blockchain, everything was talked about, we said, well, and the consumers started demanding transparency and visibility of where their products were coming from. It was about how do I bring all these new technologies together and build a platform that we can take to market. So we did a lot of research into it, and being a solution architect in my past life, I was able to bring together some really good technologies. We also trialed blockchain, but we realized that it was not ready for commercialization, so we ripped that apart, and we built our platform using AWS cloud-based, which is what we're offering is traceability as a service, so anyone can use our platform. So we've basically, as Daryl mentioned, that we've developed our own platform, which is called iTrizo ADI. ADI stands for Active Digital Identity. So as your product, asset, or service goes through the supply chain, as you all know, there's producers in the room, researchers in the room, government departments in the room. There's an identity attached to your product. Whether it's a barcode, it's a QR code, it's an IoT sensor, whatever it is, it holds a form of data on it that you need to know and understand what is happening within your supply chain at any given point in time. And a lot of people would argue that traceability has existed, and that is true. Traceability has always existed in the supply chain, but it has happened in silo. So you as a producer or you as a logistics company know what's happening in your, when the product is in your possession, but the other party does not know what's happening with your product, asset, or service when it's in somebody else's position. So the idea of traceability is linking the data from the start of the product's life to the end of the product's life. So it's the cradle to grave traceability. So what I'm here to talk about, and one of the roles that I also play is that I sit as a co-chair on the Australian, with GS1 on the Traceability Solution Provider Special Interest Group. And our role as a steering committee and my role as a co-chair is also to educate the industry, the producers across different industries about traceability and what is driving adoption of traceability. So it's understanding the business driver for traceability. Not everybody's business driver is going to be the same. And some of the things that we're seeing at the moment across the various industries, and this is not just for agriculture, but other industries such as pharmaceuticals, health, manufacturing, we're seeing compliance as being one of the key things. With all the global supply chain issues that we're seeing at the moment, with product diversions, the war in Ukraine, compliance is becoming a key thing. So if you've got an issue within compliance, or if you're an exporter, for example, the EU Green Product Passport is going to force you to adopt traceability into your products. So is the FDA. By 2023, Feb 2023, you have to demonstrate that you're working towards, you've got a traceability plan in place as a business if you're exporting to US. And by Feb 2025, you have to show and provide evidence of traceability on your product. So sustainability claims, product compliance, regulatory demands, retailer expectations, biosecurity, audit data in demand. these are some of the things from around compliance that is driving adoption of traceability. Brand trust, that's another big thing about food safety, product recalls, risk management, supply chain transparency, ethical sourcing. Then we're looking at the supply chain ecosystem partners. It's about the compliance, the product recalls. How do you exchange data and be interoperable within your supply chain? And having transparency in your supply chain. Risk mitigation is another big thing. I know that we've been approached by an insurance company where they said, well, we want to sell it as a product offering, taking to manufacturers, say, if you've got traceability in your product, that's going to mitigate your insurance risk as well. Then access to market and consumers. So access to the international and domestic market, product claims, product recalls, which falls either in your ecosystem partner as well as in your access to market and consumers. And it's about building that brand trust with your consumers. It's all around how do you meet the consumer demand, and it's also meeting the international traceability and import requirements as well. So what happens in, there's a lot of people asking the question around how do I go about adopting traceability? And it's not one size fits all. It's working with firstly identifying what your business driver is. You could have multiple issues in your business. My suggestion always is to pick one. Pick one, see your return on your investment. If you've done it for one particular problem or challenge in your business, that will be easily replicated for the next thing, because it is all about the data. So when we as a business go out and talk to a producer, our role first is, as a consultant, we have to understand what's currently happening in your supply chain ecosystem. So it's the who, what, when, where, why, how. Those are the key data elements that we capture. There's a lot of confusion out there in the marketplace where someone says, well, somebody's going to see how much money I'm making. Traceability does not require you to show any financial information with anybody else. It's about where your product is, what's happening in it, who handled it, and why did they touch it, and where it is. So that's the reason for why you would have to do that evaluation process and understand what is the business processes that are in place that can be worked with, understanding the systems and applications, the infrastructure, the communications, the line machinery. I know Christian talked about IoT devices. There's a lot of IoT devices deployed out there that give you one part of the supply chain data, not all of the supply chain data. So with traceability, it's about aggregating data from all those different sources and understanding return on investment. That is a very, very critical component, because everybody wants to know what's in it for me. How am I going to gain value from implementing traceability? And I think if I go back to the previous slide, when I talk about the business driver, you can almost see that if you've got any one of those issues, traceability will provide you that return on investment for addressing those business challenges. It is then about, for us, is then about aggregating and integrating the key data elements. So the initial setup requires us to identify the key data elements that we need for traceability, the critical trace events, from which systems we need to bring that data onto a single platform, which is the iTrails or ADI traceability platform. Once we integrate that, and what are the trace tech inputs and outputs. So Christian talked about the Exavox IoT sensor. We deal with all sorts of IoT sensors. We bring that data directly onto our platform. So you, as a producer, don't need to look at multiple dashboards. You're seeing everything that's happening in the whole of your supply chain in a single place. So this is an example of us doing an organic apple, mapping out an organic apple supply chain. This is a very high level that to fit on this slide here. But R&R Smith, we work with Woolworths, R&R Smith, organic apple producer down in Tassie, with a logistics company, and the TRDC in Tassie, and out to the retailer and down to the consumer. So this is, again, there's a massive compliance component to organic, where they have to demonstrate the seeds they've planted, the use of chemicals, everything can be demonstrated, and they can provide evidence of everything that's happened. So this this is very, very high level, but when we've delved down into detail, there's so many layers of information, the key data element and the critical trace events that we have to bring to prove that apple is truly organic. So what do we do on our traceability platform? So once we have understood your supply chain ecosystem, what's happening in your ecosystem, what are the data elements that we need to bring, then we bring that information onto our platform. So through that, we give you the insights. Basically, it's very simple and easy to use. It's customizable displays of what you want to see as a producer or as a manufacturer or product owner. You also get live consumer engagement. So if you've implemented a QR code or an NFC tag on your product, you can scan that. It'll show live onto the platform to see where the consumers are engaging with your product, and they can also give you feedback through the mobile application as well, which you get directly from the consumer rather than through marketing where you don't really get that direct feedback. So as an example, when we've worked with Costa Group, their initial starting point was getting consumer feedback on the Lovacados avocado, because they were getting a lot of complaints about the avocados not being in the right condition when it reaches the consumer. So in off-peak season, you can almost pay $5 an avocado, and that's your breakfast and lunch. You take it home, you cut it up, and it's brown inside and goes in the bin. So when they started collating this data directly from the consumer, what they saw was a pattern building up. The consumers that were buying the avocados at Coles were giving better feedback than those that were buying at other supermarkets. So they figured out through the data that there was a problem within the distribution, because the avocados are picked and within 48 hours it's packaged and out to the DC, to the consumer. So then they took that data back to that major retailer and said, here's what we're getting, what is happening in your distribution center. So the avocados were being held a lot longer in the DC then they worked back into the supply chain to implement other process improvement to start monitoring some of those things, to say, well, here's the data that's empowering us to improve what's happening in our business. With the asset management, so when we look at real-time asset tracking, so if you look at Exavox as an example, with what Christian had before, so that's an IoT sensor or any other type of sensors that we can put on assets and track that asset in real time. So your shipping containers, because that's a data input from your whole of supply chain that we need to bring, or tracking the actual logistics trucks that are out there to say what time did they leave, picked up the product and the produce, and what time did they arrive at their depot or at the TRDC or at the DCs, or it went out to the wholesaler or the market. So tracking that information as well, because that all comes and forms part of your whole of supply chain. And then with the whole value chain tracking, what you get here is a complete track and trace capability. You can, at any given point in time, you can track it, the events forward or backwards. You can have the complete monitoring of every product, which ensures the highest quality of product, and you can keep a track of all your documentation and your compliance requirements in a single place. The other key question that I always get asked is data security, scalability, and performance. So the data security and data ownership, that's something that I really want to talk about, is that the data, we don't own the data. We process the data on behalf of you as our customer. We aggregate that data, we analyze the data and give you the information that you need to better run your business. You decide who has access to that data. So when you access our platform, there's different user levels set up. So if you want, let's say, in your whole supply chain ecosystem, you've got yourself as the producer, then you might have a processor, you will have multiple logistics companies, you will have the distribution center, you might have a market aggregator, then you've got the retailer and the consumer. So if there's any information you want to share, you can say, okay, I will give access to the logistics company to have visibility of this part of the data, which is the alerts and monitoring that has come from the event that they have carried out in your supply chain. So you determine that. We don't control that. You control that. The way we process and hold the data is all highly secure in a private AWS cloud environment. And that is also reducing the infrastructure costs that you would have for processing billions of data. As you can imagine, when your products go from the start, from you all the way to the consumer, how many data points we are collecting. So it allows you to be able to process that billions of data points at speed. So there's no personal data stored as well. For when we look at supply chain traceability, when I talk about the critical trace events and the key data elements, there's no personal data associated with it. And even when we capture the serial number from like the barcode, that is encrypted onto our platform and is transformed into what we call an EPCIS, Electronic Product Code Information, 2.0 standard. So we are highly compliant. And also the platform is highly scalable, so you don't have to worry about the system falling over. It auto scales to your business as your business grows. And you only pay for what you use. So our platform is designed as traceability as a service or software as a service. That's what we do. What is the key benefits that you gain? So data-led decision-making within your supply chain, which I've sort of covered, that will help you improve your productivity, quality, and new avenues to connect directly with your customers. Extensive product tracking from creation to consumer, protecting your brand while evaluating customers' experience, exceeding international and domestic standards for regulatory compliance, traceability, security, and privacy, preventing costly supply chain mistakes, and at the global supply chain issues that we face, I think everybody would really understand that that's something that they don't want to see, and pinpointing product recalls quickly and efficiently. So if you read, mostly if there's a product recall, you read it in the Sunday papers, but through the platform, you're able to do very targeted product recall from within a time with a date timestamp of what, and everybody in your ecosystem is notified immediately to say we are recalling this product, so they can pull that off the shelf or you can take it back from their custody. So that's a little bit, I hope I've stayed within my time, Daryl. So that's a bit about iTrazo and about traceability. I hope that that sort of made sense, but I'll be around for a little bit if you want to ask any questions.
Thanks, Ree. Yeah, we're just right at the end of the time limit, so we'll thank you now, but people have a chance to talk to Ree later. So.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.